we wait to hear this story. We come and we gather to hear this story and what it means. For here is a word of hope, the light in our darkness. And we wait all year to receive it. In our own congregation, throughout the weeks leading up to tonight, we've been hearing, or this morning I should say, we've been hearing all the steps along the way in the story. And what we realized is that at every step, it seems like there was a question that was asked. Questions that seem to echo some of the questions we have in our own lives, questions that I imagine we've asked a time or two ourselves. Before we get to the part that we got to here with the manger and the baby and the shepherds in the field with the angels coming, there was an angel who appeared to Mary and said, "You are going to bear the Son of God." She wanted to know how. How was that possible? A question I imagine we might have asked a time or two in our own lives. Earlier in the story, that very same angel appeared to Zechariah, an elderly priest, to say that he and his wife Elizabeth, they would have a child too. A son named John who would prepare the way for Jesus' ministry. When Zechariah heard the angel, he wanted to know how, but he was looking for a sign. How will I know for sure? A question I know I have asked in my own life. And then Elizabeth, when she heard this news, she went on to ask, why? Why should I have this great joy? And I wonder how many times before this she had asked, why has the joy been so long in coming? Another question I've asked in my own life. Finally, when baby John was born, the whole community gathered around to celebrate. And they wondered, what next? What is God doing next through this child? This morning, when we come to hear the story of another long-awaited child, the baby Jesus, we're asking too, what next? What then will this child be? What is it going to mean to us? What is God doing next through this story? And so we get to the story, and I'll be honest, after every single question that has come my way, I have to say that I am surprised that there are no questions in the part of the story we hear today. The story tells where Mary and Joseph, they've traveled, they go, there's no room in the inn, they have the baby in the manger. The angels go, appear to shepherds in the field and tell them, good news of great joy, unto you is born this day a Savior. Go find him. And they go to find him. As familiar as this story is, I'm always surprised. Every step of the way there's a question, and here, at the point where I would expect a question, there's none. The questions fall silent. The shepherds just go. I would expect them to have a million good questions. Like, wait, what? Who are you? Why are you telling me this? What does this have to do with me anyway? Who is this child you're talking about? You want me to go where? When? Now? And yet there are no questions in the story. They just go to find this unknown child in a manger. And like I said, it's a familiar story. It always surprises me, even though I know every year the shepherds just go. I'm still surprised by it. I used to think that they must have had some kind of special insider knowledge to just go. I used to think that they must have been brought up in some great religious tradition for them to just go. That maybe they knew something we didn't. But the more I've thought about it, who the shepherds were, people on the outcasts, on the edges of society, doing the work no one else would want to do, tending to the sheep in the field, I realized Shepherds are the people who are sitting in the midnight darkness, longing for the dawn. I begin to wonder if maybe they went not because they were some superhumans with some insider knowledge, but because they were desperate for hope. They couldn't not go. They were desperate for the dawn, for the light that would break in. And so they went because they were people living on the edge of society, living on the edge of fear, living on the edge of despair and hopelessness. They went because they were desperate for hope, for the dawn to break into the darkness they knew so well. They didn't have some insider knowledge. They just went. And in those places, those moments, it makes sense that there would be no questions. Because who would dare to ask the question that might prove that it was wrong? In that desperate moment, who would dare to ask, "Are you sure, angels? Me?" And risk them saying, "No, not you, I meant someone else, my mistake." Who would dare ask the question and risk finding out that this good news of great joy is actually fake news? Who would dare ask the question in that desperate moment when light is promised? There will be room for questions later. They're all over in the Bibles. They'll be in good company in asking them. But in this moment, they are driven to the manger to see for themselves that the light has dawned. Good news of great joy unto you, shepherds, is born in the city of David a Savior, a Messiah who is the Lord. Unto you, shepherds, living on the edge, desperate, the light is dawning in your darkness. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people in my own life and my own world who have had a really hard year. It's been a hard year for a lot of people. I've known a lot of people who've had a lot of grief, who've had a lot of illnesses, unexpected changes come up, things they weren't ready for, things no one's ever ready for. And I began to wonder at all the ways that we are the shepherds in the fields, living on the edge of something, desperate for something, knowing a moment where we are afraid, we are still in the midnight darkness, hoping that the dawn will come. Living on the edge of fear, living on the edge of exhaustion, living on the edge of despair, on the edge of death, living on the edge of uncertainty, living on the edge of crumbling under things that are just overwhelming to us. We are shepherds still in the field, living on the edge of the dawn. And the good news that comes in this sacred story is that unto us a Savior is born. To you, shepherds, in the field, the Savior is born. And the good news is that there aren't questions asked of us in that moment. It is just a call to go, see, peek into the manger and see if it could really be true. If the light might truly be dawning in the darkness. For here, when we live on the edge, we are given the good news of a child who lives on the edge of heaven and earth and invites us there too. That's the good news of this day. In this child is for us the one who can pull us back from the cliffs that we sometimes feel like we're standing on, to reveal God's majesty and to reveal that here is the edge of God's kingdom come in our lives. Here is the edge of hope dawning in our hearts. Here is the edge of love that can cast out the fear. Here is the edge of forgiveness that can heal the hurts that we don't even know we still have. Here is the edge of peace that casts out any anger, any uncertainty, any anxiety. Here is the edge of where heaven and earth meet, and we are invited to it. So this morning we come like the shepherds, daring, willing, desperate to see the light that dawns in the darkness. Desperate to run, holding our breath, waiting to see if it really is, and peek into a manger and see in a child the place where heaven and earth meet, the place where our desperation is swallowed up and we are made whole. My friends, for a moment, there is power there, if only for a moment to silence the questions as we come and see. Amen. As we reflect, I invite our choir to lead us in their response.